graphic design things do. Imagine I love the idea that the audience here is coming from lots of different disciplines. I understand some of you are in graphics, some of you are interiors, some in architecture, some perhaps in engineering. And in my mind, the way to make things work is to have everything speak with one voice. And imagine if IBM used this as their corporate logo. It wouldn't quite communicate what I think they're all about. And little things like graphic design play a big role in customer perception. And with the way government regulation is going, it will be probably likely that certain brands will have to be just generic or not be able to say anything. Imagine trying to be the brand manager for Marlboros or Camels if this is all you could do. How do you differentiate? So graphics actually plays a big role in our life by what we wear. When you go in consciously or unconsciously and you're buying something, whether it's a T-shirt or it's a suit, you're in essence branding yourself one way or the other. I also think that these kinds of signs are very powerful. I think of this when I'm driving as a command, and so I immediately stop. It's like and eat. But there's something about truth in advertising, and these kinds of things I think are wonderful. And when you have a choice of how do I design a communication, a command, aspiration, the way one uses and combines graphics in the presentation is really hard. And there's been lots of things done with taking something, right, it used to be that advertising budgets were divided between 30-second television spots and print ads. Now the money is all over the place. It's in point of sale, it's in direct marketing, it's online, it's all sorts of ways of doing it. But if you have a shopping bag and you're walking down Fifth Avenue in New York, it's a great billboard. So people have done wonderful things with shopping bags. This is a bookstore, I think, in Holland. But it's fun. Or this is, if you may not be politically correct, but it kind of works. There's been major anti-smoking campaigns in Belgium, Holland, Germany, and some of the graphics that have come out have been absolutely extraordinary. I think this sort of thing. So it's clever. You're seeing more and more guerrilla marketing going on out there now, and I think that as designers, some of the best stuff that one sees around the world is these little bits of guerrilla marketing that crop up. I really think they're wonderful. They're inspiring. And I think that some of you who are doing graphics probably read Print magazine. And I love print because they always are taking young designers and putting something up there. And the one on the left, which you can't see, is called Change, and the one on the right is Unity. And it's just a very simple little graphic, but it's very, very effective, I think. I like that. And this is a designer who decided there's another way to do tattoos. I thought this was really innovative. Usually the tattoos all form, designed by the Hells Angels or something. But here's a graphic designer's approach to the world of tattoos. As I say, in advertising, there's lots of wonderful things because you can be fairly free-form, and while there's a lot of analytics that goes into advertising, at the end of the day, somebody has to be creative and come up with something. So I thought that was a pretty good ad for Raid. It's really it works. That works. Or these things. I've never been accused of being politically correct, so my apologies. I think this was wonderful. So there's a lot of clever right-brain stuff going on out there, and you can apply this to sort of whatever you're doing. For a bird, this is like the bread, Albany bread. Good. Well, some of this is California. How many of you are from California? Any of you from California? Because California is the best place, and the western United States, because they have all these everything's gigantic out there. And this is the kind of billboards they're doing now. I think it's fun. Not bad for hot, spicy ketchup. The idea, if you notice, most of these things are done with great simplicity. It's one idea done exceptionally well. And it's so much better to do one thing well than try to cram 10 things into a message. If you can communicate one thing very, very well, that usually carries the day. And with technology, and this is early technology, this was a series of billboards in London that were, in essence, interactive. So when you walk down the street and you passed under that, it made you smart. And you're seeing more and more of this sort of thing happening. That's where the technology is becoming a marvelously creative adjunct to the toolbox that one has to create innovative design. Well, this for a window cleaner. For it's getting a little bleached out here. That's a goldfish with a crash helmet and a fishbowl, but it's for glass cleaner. This to me has been one of my favorite bits of sort of guerrilla marketing. This is on a bus I think in Holland, for a watch company. It was just so clever because it's things you see every day, the straps hanging and whatnot. How to use that for an advertising marketing purpose. I love that. And then in the area of retail design, where I've focused most of my energies, it's an interesting part of the design process. I didn't set out to do retail design early on in my career. When I got out of school, I worked for a very prestigious architectural firm for a year, and they fired me, and that was my last job. So I started very early, and what I did was anything I could do, whether it was graphics or packaging or somebody's kitchen or bathroom or whatever. I just wanted to design. And so we would do anything out there, and we fell into retail design. And I found that it was a wonderful area of open expression, because the criteria for design, while you have a cash register at the end of the day that has to ring, or your design has failed, there's no criteria for it. It's not like doing a hospital or a lab where you have so many restrictions in terms of rules and regulations of what you can and can't do. And it can involve graphics, it can involve industrial design, it can involve architecture, interiors. So it took into play for me all the things that I like to do. And it didn't have 8-foot-high ceilings, which when I was doing some corporate interiors, I didn't really relish. So for me, it became a very nice outlet. And the firm that I founded, which was called Walker Group, and then Walker Group C&I, attracted just wonderfully creative people, some of whom had a graphics background, some studied interiors, some were MBAs, some were architects. And we worked in a very, very collaborative way. And that's why an audience like this I find interesting. And at CCS, that I'm proud to be a little part of, I like the interdisciplinary opportunities that are there as well. And shopping is very visceral. When all of you travel, you do two things. You eat and you shop and sightsee. But the shopping part, I think when they get to the end of the Genome Project, they're going to find that you have a shopping gene in you. And you can be able to alter it somehow or other. You can be luxury, or you could go down market or something like that, but sure they'll find a way to engineer it. But it really is part of our psyche, and it's part of what we like to do when we're out there bouncing around. And it's very competitive. It's competitive on all levels, and never more so than really right now in an economy like we're having. And when you go into a shopping center or mall, or you go down the high street, everybody's trying to pull you in. And each person is either trying to present merchandise to you better or offerings better. And so much of it, unfortunately, is price driven. And this would probably be the ideal store for a lot of retailers. But what happens is it gets overwhelmed by promotion. And to a lot of people, this is retailing. Just get it out there, get the price out. But the real innovators, and the ones that will be around for a long time, know how to go well beyond it. But what happens is we're all used to clues. And you see a sign like this that says $4.99, and then you see another sign like this that says only $4.99, and this is the much better value. So we're trained to think in these graphic terms. But you can't lose sight of that, because it really is part of the retail experience. And the problem with most retailers is like the yam lady that I showed you before. They all copy each other. If you're in the shoe business and somebody opens a new shoe store, you go out to see what they've done. Or in the cosmetic business, they're all looking over each other's shoulders to try to see if there's some new way of doing things. And if you're an architect or designer and you're asked to do a store, like we worked for the last 2 years with Telstra in Australia, which is a wireless company. And what they've been doing in the past is simply going out, seeing what the competition was doing, and do it in a different color. You don't advance with that. And so with everything looking the same, innovation becomes almost a requirement to succeed now. 10 years ago, you didn't hear people talk about innovation the way they do now. And still today, people don't really understand how to do it, save for a handful of companies like Google and Apple that really know how to innovate. And what the idea is to do is that you have to differentiate yourself one way or another from everybody sort of looking the same. So that's my last politically incorrect slide. But this is part of the process, is how do you take something and add value to it, whether real or perceived. But this is Starbucks, in a way. Why do you spend $2.95 for a Starbucks coffee when you can get a cup of coffee for $1.50? And part of it is that perceived value and the experience of going to a Starbucks, whether one likes Starbucks today or not. It's been successful because it transformed itself from just a coffee shop to what they used to call a third place. And it is done with certain amenities, but it is really all about perception and the value that one is getting for what you see. And I think that we're very accustomed to having visual presentation done for us when you go in a department store, and it's a good department store, and it makes you walk around it. Chances are the reason you're walking around and circulating is when you're standing here and you look there, you see something and it's lit. It may be a group of mannequins, and when you get to that point, if you look that way, you might see something that draws you to it. And I think that we're used to visual presentation as being part and parcel of the retail experience. And the clues for that, again, are all around us. My favorite bits of visual presentation are things like the bazaar in Istanbul or the floating markets in Bangkok, where the markets have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And in this case, the spice sellers really know what they're doing, really know how to present their wares exceptionally well. And that's a better place to look for clues than what your competitor is doing around the corner. And we've tried in some ways to learn from that and be able to translate that into a modern environment that we would design. And I think these are some examples of what I think are pretty good visual presentations as stores, or stores as visual presentations. This is the vitamin water store in the UK, and M&M's has done this, and others really quite well in terms of taking a product and making it into the maximum visual presentation environment that you can do. Automobiles to me have always been a source of inspiration. I probably really wanted to be an automotive designer and have done a little bit, but really was never very good on playing with those silicon graphic machines. I could never learn how to do it. And so I didn't go that route. But automobiles are ubiquitous. They're all around us. We see things. We're impressed by them. You know why people like something like this Ferrari. The home, the do-it-yourself guy can sort of create his own branded environment this way. And one of the things that annoys me in automotive design is that we're making green cars, but nobody knows they're green cars. This is a green car. This, you know where this person stands, at least as being pro-environment. But it's sort of funny because they, when I look at the cars that are supposedly green, there's no vocabulary yet that's been devised for showing that you're a green car. There's badges and names, but there's nothing that immediately tells you that. And I sort of like vehicles where you kind of know what the person looks like who's driving this. And you can imagine this guy probably has a tattoo or two or something like that. But I think the way the automotive industry is going, it won't be very long before you can order your Buick Skylark with flames on the hood, because I think we're going to be getting into mass customization more and more. But I think the automobile has a tremendous influence on what we do. It's a source of pride. Next to our home, it's usually the second biggest purchase that we have, and people love to customize them and make it part of their brand. Your cell phone, in essence, is probably the most personal item that you own. No two people in this room have the same things on their cell phone, I would doubt. And so there's that need to sort of distinguish yourself, and what you wear and what you drive are two ways of doing that. And the automobile has also influenced a lot of what roadside America is all about, and especially out west where you have these big open spaces. You see these incredible things: dinosaurs, 4-story high tire salesmen. And I love this stuff. And this, luckily, in Los Angeles, which I'm sure most of you have seen pictures of, if not seen the real thing, acquired landmark status in downtown LA and has been preserved. And there's lots of things like this around the country. Lucy, do any of you know Lucy the elephant in Margate, New Jersey? Has ever seen it? It's a great elephant that's been landmarked. So there's lots of things like that. But they affect architects in a very pronounced way. And this won a number of design awards last year. There's a fast food stop, I think it's in Kansas or Oklahoma, and it's just terrific. And it's in that spirit of these giant roadside America signs and statues that you see, and it's really beautifully done. And so it's very rightly so, it won a host of AIA awards last year. One of the things that I always like about doing a presentation like today, I get to show things that we did that we loved that never got built. And I could have a 4 or 5 hour slideshow on that. But this is something that we did here in Detroit as the guinea pig. And a friend of mine ended up buying A&W. And A&W had a 100-year history. And it was really pretty good, but their roadside presence was next to nothing. And we started to try to think of what this could be. And when you think of a restaurant, a McDonald's or anything like that, what it really is, it's a billboard, it's a three-dimensional billboard on the highway. And it happens to hold people and food and whatnot. But the whole presence is that of a sign, a billboard, etc. So we started to experiment with A&W, and we came up with all kinds of provocative ways of maybe creating a totally different branded image. And these were some of the early studies that we did. I kind of liked this one. But what we ended up doing was we realized that this building had to have a presence during the day and a different presence at night, or as impactful a presence at night. And we developed this idea of a modern sort of glass building that had a lot of presence during the day, differentiated itself from the others, but at night also was still the billboard. It had one sort of slight problem. It cost about 5 times what the budget was, so it never did see the light of day. But I show this to everybody because I want to build this one day. So the store that I think probably symbolizes the best of retail today, and I mean that across the board, from department stores to specialty stores, is what Apple has done. And it looks very simple, but the power of Apple is really, it is simple in that everything it does speaks with one voice. The architecture, the product, the training of the salespeople, the graphics, the advertising, it's all speaks with one voice, and that's very much top down. That's Steve Jobs' mantra and John Ive's mantra. And a handful of companies have within their ranks what I call a CIO, not a chief information officer, but a chief image officer. And Apple has that in their leader. Target has it in a person. Nike has it. A handful of companies do that and do that well. But the beauty of Apple is that consistency, and whether it's in Tokyo, whether it's in Detroit, whether it's in New York or London, everything they do has that wonderful consistency. But it is manifested in part. Some of you, I'm sure, have seen the Apple Store in New York. It's about 10 minutes from where I live, and it stays open 24 hours a day. And I go there at 4 in the morning because I'm very anxious if I can't fix something on my Mac, and I don't know how to do it. So I can get to the Genius Bar at 4 in the morning. And it has, again, that day-night presence, sort of similar to what we were looking for in A&W. But the thing about Apple that most people don't realize, a lot of architects come in and want to copy it. They say, oh, well, let's do something simple like Apple. What they don't realize is that simplicity has many, many layers. And the main feature of Apple, to me, is the Genius Bar and what it stands for. And if any of you, have any of you worked in an Apple store? Because they have the best training. If you like computer science, and you get a job at an Apple store, it's like Nirvana. You go through a 6-week training program, and then you keep moving up the ranks by how much knowledge you have. So it reinforces itself, and this Genius Bar is really of a high order. Think of any other store that has something like this. What's your experience going into a phone store to get something fixed, as an example, compared to something like this? So this, to me, is a very good benchmark, and hopefully will segue to my being able to ask you guys some questions. But this is how I look at the creative process, looking for clues in places you might not normally expect, using your right brain to try to push the envelope. Instead of looking at your competitors, look out, look elsewhere, and hopefully you'll innovate and you won't die. Thank you. So.